Richard Street says if the Texas tornado would have been in better health, mentally and physically, is he someone that could have been built into a heel as a credible foe for Hogan? In Texas, of course, he was a babyface for life, but on the global stage, I think he could have been otherwise. What do you think? Could you have seen Kerry Von Erich as a heel?
No, Kerry Von Erich was just too nice of a human being, I think, to be a heel, and Kerry was so likable and just such a great guy that it was you. I don't know, man. He could have cut the Pope's head off and still been cheered. There was just something about him that people really liked. He was a genuinely nice person. So to hate Kerry Von Erich would have been a very difficult thing. Now, had Kerry stayed straight and Kerry been able to continue on, I could have seen Kerry as the WWE champion. And that would have been an unbelievable story. But I also think that it would have needed to tell the entire story and let people know that, hey, he's working, with a nub here. He doesn't have a foot. And that was an incredible story. What Kerry Von Erich did and what he was able to accomplish after the motorcycle accident where he lost his foot uh, is an incredible story, and one that should have been told, properly. And it was told in Iron Claw, and they did the very best they could do in that time frame. I don't know how you tell that family story in under 2 hours. That's a that's a hard one. So if you were able to tell the whole story of Kerry Von Erich, I could have seen him be one of the biggest champions of all time.
It's interesting to think about what if. We talk a lot about what if, but I think everybody knows. But Kerry Von Erich passed away when he was just 33 years old in 1993. So just going forward 10 years, man, the way the business looked in 93 versus the way it looked in '03 were two totally, entirely different businesses. And he would have just been 43 years old. So even if you fast forward to 2013, he would have just been 50. I mean, 53 years old, but still, the point is, man, there was a lot of life left for Kerry Von Erich in the pro wrestling business. But to think about Kerry through the Austin era, through the new generation era, through the attitude era, through a post merger of WWF and WCW, post acquisition, that's crazy to think about, isn't it?
Kerry Von Erich, was one of the biggest stars in the business and could have been one of the biggest stars of all time in the business, had he stuck around.
If you could close your eyes and imagine, I know you've never spent any brain power on this, but just off the top, who would have been fun to see him work with in the Attitude Era? Like Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, The Rock, Stone Cold. Is there somebody that comes to mind right away where you're like, man, now that would have
Oh,
been fun?
right on down the list. You think of Kerry Von Erich and The Rock. Holy cow, just going back and forth. Kerry wasn't the greatest on promos, but working with The Rock could have gotten more personality out of Kerry. Would have loved to have seen Kerry in Cactus. Mankind would have been
Oh
incredible.
gosh.
Kerry and The Undertaker would have been great. So to me, there's nobody in the Attitude Era that would have been off limits that you would have said, wow, that doesn't work. I think every opportunity in the Attitude Era for Kerry Von Erich was a good one.
Even thinking about the new generation, like him in there with Razor and Diesel and Sean,
Oh, yeah.
what are the great what ifs that I've never really spent any time thinking about until right now. Here's another one. This is a fun one too, Bruce. Eric Sandler says, if Bruce could have grown up as a kid in any of the classic territories other than Houston, which one would he pick and why?
Hmm. Probably, I would say New York because of the aura of the Garden and Bruno. However, as a kid, I wouldn't have been able to enjoy it because of the uh, the state law or state athletic commission law that you couldn't even go to the Garden until you were 14 years of age. So I wouldn't have been able to enjoy it the same way. So we'll ixnay New York. Probably, I would say either Atlanta or Tampa.
Yeah, I could see you digging the. I thought for sure you were going to say Florida, so I'm not surprised that you said that one. But Atlanta is a bit of a shock. What about Atlanta intrigues you?
Well, because Atlanta was able to draw from, Atlanta had partners and was able to draw from the Carolinas. They were able to draw from Florida, and they were right smack dab in the middle and had such a powerful base with Barnett that they got great talent, very much like Houston. They got a lot of outside talent to come in and work in Atlanta that you weren't seeing the same guys every single week. You did, you had your base like everybody else did, but you had a lot of outside talent come through Atlanta because that was another place to be able to show your wares. And I'll throw in St. Louis too.
Lady H has a fun question. I've heard it said from JR that Big Show wasn't used right when he first got to WWE. What would you have done differently?
Well, I a few things. I think that the Big Show coming in initially, if you're going to make a monster and have the monster beat the biggest guy that was Stone Cold Steve Austin, and to have a monster like the Big Show that's undefeated and unbeatable, that is a hell of an opportunity to build somebody from. Another way to do it would have been to bring him in as Steve's guy and be the big baby face and be the equalizer on the babyface side to help a Stone Cold Steve Austin against guys like Rock and Taker. And, you can on down the line, you can make your heel factory to be able to feed the giant, make him a babyface until it was time for Big Show to turn. And then at that point, then Big Show creams Austin and moves on. And you've got, you know, years to play with from there. But he was immediately brought in, immediately beaten, and immediately didn't mean anything anymore.